The world was completely shaken by an earthquake that changed everything. Dungeons emerged from the earth and unbeatable monsters walked among them all. Only those who awakened supernatural powers could fight, warriors known as Awaken. Among them was Kisaragi Tsukasa, a low-level young man with skills that everyone considered useless. Imitated, ridiculed, betrayed, and used as a disposable pawn, poor thing. Tsukasa was left to fend for himself in the face of a legendary enemy, but when all seemed lost, he found a new purpose. To save his sister, he needed to face the impossible. In a world where only the strong survive, true awakening begins. Everyone shook in an agonized scream as a cataclysmic earthquake ripped apart the very soul of the earth. From the depths of destruction, dungeons emerged, dark portals to an unknown realm, illuminated by rays of light that pierced the heavens like open wounds. Unspeakable horrors, monsters born of darkness, crawled from these crevices, their forms loathsome and impenetrable to common weapons. Hope emerged amid the chaos, whispers of individuals gifted with powers beyond comprehension. These are the Awakened, imbued with supernatural abilities. With each victory over these aberrations, these Awakened would grow stronger, their powers rising to unfathomable heights. They became living legends, feared and revered, a faint beacon in the darkness that consumed the world. And now we see that one of them, Kisaragi Tsukasa, a low-level warrior, wields a rusty sword, a gleam of impending battle dancing in his eyes. His ability was to imitate, but that ability was both a promise and a curse. He attacked the goblin, the blade tracing a faint path through its skin. The pain of failure hit him. His ability once again proved incapable of replicating the power he so desperately wanted. He, deeply discouraged, but still full of hope, completely distracted, did not notice the shadow that was moving. A merciless and swift goblin slashed at him, ready to sacrifice his life. But then a voice rose up, uttering a word. Burning, mana, soul energy gathered into a sphere of fire and manifested in the air. The goblin was struck with tremendous fury and soon fell apart, forming nothing but ashes. That red-haired guy, Toto Kakaroo, approached with a bitter smile on his lips and started accusing Tsukasa of wasting all his time with such worthless trash. That guy was a huge idiot. Kakaroo continued sneering. That guy was a level 15 Awaken, a master of flames, a legend in the making, and his power was totally legendary, a beacon with all his awakened superiority. The thing is, there was a skill hierarchy that was a somewhat bitter reality. Since the emergence of dungeons, the Awakened have risen with the ability to sense each other's essence, position in the web of power. Kakaroo, as expected, placed himself at the top of the chain as a legitimate, excellent predator. He started telling him to stop looking there and start collecting all the magic stones and demand without a hint of mercy in his voice. As Tsukasa, all he could do was mutter, understood, response. The ability of Kakaroo, the master of flames, was a mesmerizing dance of flames, an absolute power of destruction. Meanwhile, Tsukasa, with the ability to imitate, was destined to live as an echo and imitate, trapped in a pattern of physical contact and a low chance of success. With each magical stone he collected, he continued to regret being born with that power in his heart. The other Awakened, Hakaru and Hayato, shouted loudly, saying that this guy was useless. He couldn't even use his own ability. Hakaru continues mocking him, saying that he should give up soon. Hayato also agreed. Kakaroo then threw an arm over Tsukasa's shoulders and said in a very sweet voice, but with completely poisoned words, telling everyone not to say such things about Tsukasa. All the comrades there started laughing, but Tsukasa got extremely goosebumps. Kakaroo started saying very quietly that he should be a little more useful if possible, give the trash skill he had. Tsukasa had no choice, poor thing, but to swallow all that humiliation, his only salvation, the sweet memory of his sister, Kisaragi Mayo's face. His sister, the girl lying in an ICU suffering bed, victim of an obscure illness. He would save her, whatever the cost. The elixir, a medicine that could supposedly cure any ailment, was the ultimate goal. Until that day, he would not allow himself to fall. No. Kakaroo asked what their objective was today, and Hakaru quickly said that it was the boss's room. Hayato, stepping on the goblin's body, said that it was the monster's lair. Kakaroo, with a predator's smile, wondered where all the treasure was. Time passed inside that dungeon, where several explosions echoed, all courtesy of Kakaroo's flame dance. With each monster he took, Kakaroo's power increased, and his levels rose beyond the reach of Tsukasa's dreams. Tsukasa, poor, frustrated, could only curse the fact that the only way to level up was by killing monsters, something he couldn't even do. The presence of that guy to everyone there was the presence of a completely useless bastard. Why did he bother going? Everyone was happy, except Tsukasa, to have finally arrived at the goblin's God's treasure hiding place. Kakaroo and Hayato, very happy, started going through all the items with tremendous greed shining in their eyes. But Kakaroo didn't pay attention to them. He moved a wall, very hopefully, and a fireball was thrown at the golden door, so we could see that it was a bonus room. Now yes, fine. One wrong step and death would be almost certain, without a doubt. After all, a bonus room, a well of rewards, has a lot of dangers and many lethal traps. The three started talking about the plan, and Kakaroo already took a look at Tsukasa. Take the bait, right? Tsukasa turned to him, and Kakaroo soon threw a punch right on Tsukasa's edge. Poor Tsukasa, lying on the ground, started to groan. Kakaroo, with a cruel smile, said that that guy would now have the role of being a sacrifice for the other three there. Kakaroo, Hayato couldn't even look. They were hesitant to sacrifice their comrade, but that was the action they would have to take. After all, no one wanted to recycle useless trash like that. Kakaroo and Hayato then caught Tsukasa, while Kakaroo kicked him towards the bonus door. Good luck. If they meet again, of course. The doors then slowly closed. Tsukasa sent everyone to pieces with tremendous anger. Suddenly, a blue aura hovered around him, and he panicked, shocked, for it became a blinding light that consumed everything. Tsukasa then opened his eyes, and he was in a very strange place, like an amphitheater. He saw a head and two eyes shining with intensity towards him. He wasn't an awaken, and he was in trouble. Crazy. He remembered the classification of dungeons: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and heroic, but none of them could compare to a mythical one. Then, before him, the claws of fear struck with disturbing force at the rear of the level 80 Earth God. Abilities unknown. That's it, Dan. Now he thought this was all a joke. It couldn't be. You're crazy. But the beast that was there in front of him was nothing funny. There was no way he could go back, and he couldn't give up there. No. His parents were gone, and Mayo was sick in the ICU, and he was just fighting there for her, and he couldn't die there. No, Tsukasa screamed. Then he raised his sword, determined, and attacked, jumping towards the Earth God. His sword cut through the air, with both hope and despair. His attack, poor thing, was useless. The beast then began to roar loudly, and Tsukasa flew backwards, hitting the wall with tremendous force. The creature continued its roar even further, emanating a shockwave that hit him with tremendous force. Tsukasa then fell to the ground again, and blood ran out of his mouth. The beast took a step and approached, while Tsukasa looked into the beast's shining eyes. It was hungry for blood. He, poor thing, was in a hurry. A notification flashed raw and emotionless. The skill imitation had failed. In copying the target's skill, chip. A knot of fear tightened in your chest. Would this be the end of you? Then God Eater, Fenrir, approached, each step echoing like a death knell. Despite everything, Tsukasa trudged on in one last determined glow, fighting his own despair. He remembered Mayo's smile in his mind, a ghost of memory, and said he was sorry. He agonizingly said that his brother was pathetic and closed his eyes, accepting his fate. When a voice made him stop and calm down, the atmosphere of the place then changed, and the air became extremely heavy. The ground shook, fissures spread. Tsukasa watched in bewilderment as gravity became oppressive. Everything around him crushed except him. Fenrir was paralyzed, unable to move. The voice spoke again. Good boy, Fenrir. A sound of high heels was echoing. A graceful figure appeared. You should be a little nicer to our guest. She scolded again with tremendous sweetness. A woman with silver hair, pointed ears, and an aura of serenity is like a goddess. She smiled at him and told him he was very important. She, well-mannered, welcomed him to her castle. Tsukasa didn't understand anything, still a little dazed from the fight, from almost dying, wondering who she was. She approached him, looking him in the eyes, asked if he could still speak. After everything Fenrir did to him, that's really impressive. She smiled again and said that from now on, nothing was impossible for him. As his hand ran across Tsukasa's bloodied face, she whispered in Tsukasa's ear that this was her gift to him. Then, a thick and dense red magic swallowed them both. Power completely crushed Tsukasa. The mana invaded his entire body like a flood, and the system soon appeared announcing that the ability he had to copy had evolved to imitate. His level increased in rapid steps until the status window received level 25. Damn! He was extremely confused, and that woman was laughing madly, her eyes shining like stars. Tsukasa tried to balance herself, but she stopped him, saying that for now, she will say goodbye, and the black smoke enveloped her, while Tsukasa shouted for her to wait. He wanted an explanation, didn't he? The woman just smiled, telling him to use this power and defeat Fenrir, and only then will he escape the mythical Great Dungeon. After she disappeared, a thunderous roar broke all the silence. Fenrir was free, and Tsukasa, Chip, swallowed hard. He wasn't ready for this, nor could he defeat a mere goblin, poor thing. How could I now kill kill a mythical monster. Fenrir's claws then approached, and Tsukasa blocked it with his sword. The imitator's skill was now activated. Tsukasa was thrown back, but he understood in his mind that he had copied the monster's powers. He was desperate, but something screamed inside his body that he couldn't give up there. Not at all. Everyone there was cautious, each one studying the movements. That pause was extremely tense. Tsukasa noticed that the notification window was still there, and he hadn't used his power yet. Among the powers was the first skill, Celestial Authority. It involves the user's body with the power of the gods, improving physical abilities to the maximum, and the duration was 1 minute. That was a powerful card up your sleeve, but only 1 minute. Every second counted, my boss. Fenrir then roared again, charging forward, with his claws ready to kill Tsukasa, but Tsukasa moves extremely fast, dodging all of his blows. His body was extremely light, his reflexes were super sharp, and even he couldn't believe he was really doing this. He finally managed to copy the power of a mythical monster. Damn. Before, he couldn't imitate even a mere goblin. Now, every contact made him much stronger. Then a wave of pain hit him. Fenrir's power was overwhelming, and he even staggered, barely able to support himself, poor thing. The strength of the divine wolf restricts the ability of enemies. Tsukasa fell, using his sword to steady himself, and black lightning enveloped him. The wolf had been successfully copied, and that ability allowed him to use the silver wolf's presence to intimidate his opponents, and the duration was 10 seconds, and it also varied according to the opponent's level. The effects of Fenrir's ability dissipated, and Tsukasa recovered. Although staggering, he almost cried, and he let his guard down for a moment. Then, a new attack hit him. Fenrir brandished his claws again, and a series of dark claws appeared, cutting through all the air. Tsukasa froze, the sight of his own death before him, and at the last second, his body moved on instinct, narrowly dodging the attack. Fenrir advanced without giving him any time to breathe. Tsukasa blocked with his sword, his body begging for rest. He can't lose this now. Not seeing the weakness and fatigue beginning to accumulate and Fenrir's power extremely overwhelming, he won't last long. He needs to act. Then, he remembered the heavenly authority. Vanguard Fenrir's attack surged again, and this was the moment. Now he shouted to himself, "Heavenly authority," and an energy overflowed, embracing him as if he were a second skin. Fenrir's attack had reached its peak, then everything exploded into light. Vanguard was created, an aura surrounded Tsukasa again, and a wave of power radiated from it. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The Celestial Authority started a 60-second countdown, and he only had 1 minute to take down this monster. Tsukasa raised her sword again, and a dark beam swirled around. He assumed the attacking stance with an unwavering determination in his eyes. He swung a shadow blade, rushing towards Fenrir. He used Vanguard, a power that almost killed him, the power of the mythical monster himself. The attack hit Fenrir at an extremely high speed. The beast didn't expect that. No. Tsukasa only had 50 seconds left. He then attacked again, slashing with the tremendous, unrelenting fury, the power of the gods. He could feel it. Fenrir roared again, but Tsukasa caught him with a powerful kick, sending him crashing to the ground. 30 seconds. Tsukasa continued his relentless attack. The situation had completely changed. He had been trapped by now, and now he had become the hunter. 20 seconds until the end of the skill, and Fenrir finally managed to defend himself from his blows. Tsukasa was pushed back tremendous force. Time was running out as there was now only 20 seconds left. They were both desperate and used the same solutions, Vanguard. The two began to roar together, both attacks colliding with an overwhelming and tremendous force. Dark magic clashed, each attack fighting for dominance and falling like tears from hell. In the end, an attack from Fenrir, fueled by unparalleled raw power, won the battle. The black lightning approached relentlessly. Tsukasa, anticipating imminent defeat, realized that no, he couldn't simply react. His level was very low. His strength was also extremely low compared to the strength of the beast, and he needed more than speed, more than strength. He needed to use his head, to use his wits. He knew that he could only win if he reached Fenrir at close range and attacked directly. Fenrir then released a powerful black beam from his mouth, looking like a hungry abyss. Tsukasa ran. Each step was like a prayer. With wide eyes, he realized, and now there were 8 seconds left, he thought that the celestial skill would end at any moment. Then, Fenrir's attack exploded into a column of shadows. It seemed impossible for him to dodge, but he came out. appearing above the beast. Fenrir tried a new attack, but Tsukasa raised his sword again. He only had 5 seconds left. Before the beast could release another attack, he attacked with all his strength. The sword hit the beast right in the snout, as if it were the last blow with all his strength. He raised his sword, shouting that he was going to end this now. 1 second before the skill ended, he was about to make his last attack. Suddenly, a word echoed throughout the hall. Stop. Tsukasa's sword stopped in the air inches from the beast's eye. His entire body was paralyzed, trapped in time, and a message appeared. Imitator skill activated. The word skill has been copied successfully. The mysterious woman, the one from before, cheered happily. What a fantastic show, my dear subscribers. And with a mere snap of his fingers, the paralysis that was imprisoning Tsukasa dissipated, and he almost fell. It's over, said that woman. That hero fight from the previous moments was nothing, and she just said that maybe they deserved a cup of coffee, right? Minutes later, she was relaxedly sitting on top of the unconscious Fenrir, while Tsukasa stared with such disbelief. Why? Why everything? He asked, and she just said it was to kill time. Many adventurers almost don't go there, and even if they do, Fenrir kills them immediately, and she never expected to find someone like him. As he wonders, am I, me, all fucked up like this? Is it really? She then slowly walks towards him, cups his cheek, and makes a wish. She would like to experience the outside world for herself. In that outside world, there are few amounts of mana, and that is why she cannot explore there freely. So, she would like him to cooperate with her. Is that okay with him? I just think that being treated so politely like this, and still by his savior, he is in no mood to refuse. No. Tsukasa, naturally, was already hypnotized by the effects of that woman and replied, yes. I'll help you. The immediate response seemed to surprise her. With wide-eyed surprise, she said she didn't expect such an immediate response, and her cheeks even blushed. Tsukasa started to say that he doesn't know who she is, but she gave him the strength to fight Fenrir, and for that reason, he believes that perhaps it would be in his best interest to have her around. He wiped his face, and before he could finish his sentence, his vision was already blurred. The mysterious woman pulled him close and left his face between her breasts, and the darkness, pain, the fatigue took their toll, but in a now extremely soft way. Before losing his senses, he whispered a question, "What's your name?" And she just said it was Locke, so he fell into darkness. Locke smiled because he looked forward to the adventure together with him. Then, he woke up on an unfamiliar ceiling. His head seemed to spin, and soon he heard someone saying that finally the sleeper woke up. He saw a girl with silver hair and red eyes sitting on the edge of the bed, and she said that he already forgot about her now and then. Her voice matched his youthful appearance, and she continued saying that he is quite rude, you see. Then, he recognized the woman's mysterious features and attitudes, but in the form of a child. He asked her if it was Locke, and she smiled and jumped on him, saying that she finally had a chance to have fun in the outside world, but unfortunately he had to go to sleep. How boring. Locke now, with very mischievous eyes, was saying that he should redeem himself now. Tsukasa was panicked, poor guy, and just said that first she would have to get off of him, and after a few seconds, the situation became very calm. He asked what happened after he passed out, and she just said that she carried him and teleported them to a low-level dungeon. Did you go to the hospital? Where did he end up? She then used telekinesis and moved an apple towards her. She said she picked up his unconscious body and left it in front of the dungeon. She wanted to make sure someone would find him quickly, and an adventurer found him and took him there. She, still biting the apple, said she was learning something new. Could she teleport to the outside world all the time? So why didn't she do this sooner? Locke only replied that this was the most obvious thing in the world, as if she were a god. She started saying that to maintain her form, she needs large amounts of mana, and in that world, there is little amount, and she can only manifest herself in that form. Now he has a plausible explanation for Locke's child. In that form, she couldn't walk around freely. No. And he kept thinking that if she continued walking like that everywhere and everywhere, the police would catch her, for sure, for her own protection. But she soon calls him insolent and takes another apple. And he asks why she helped him. She just said she wanted his cooperation, and, most importantly, he will be hers. She immediately gives an evil smile, saying that she will leave the details for later, and he doesn't understand anything. She then snaps her fingers and a mist begins to hover in the area. Apparently, it is already disappearing, and he asks where she's going, and she just says that she's not so rude as to intrude on his family, and until next time, get out of there. And so, there she is, Mayo, worried about her little brother. She runs over and hugs him, saying he was in a coma for a week and people said he might never wake up again. Damn, 1 week. He had no idea he had been trapped in that bed for a week. He apologizes, while she tearfully thanks him for waking up. After all, if he had gotten better, she would have been alone. He just says that she is his only family, and they will be together until the end. She then consoles herself by telling him to rest and not try so hard. He also tells her not to try too hard either and leaves the room, but then Locke reappears, asking if that was his sister. He says yes, she is the only family he has. Unfortunately, she has been sick since birth. The doctors said there was no cure, and for that reason, he is investigating dungeons to look for a medicine to cure all illnesses. Locke quickly tells him to forget that the illness his sister has cannot be cured with this kind of medicine, damn it. That came as a shock to Tsukasa. She completes her sentence by saying that the origin of her illness is probably a dungeon curse. Even if a dungeon curse results in some skills, that could be someone's work and perhaps be of mythical category. In other words, if it's a skill someone played, if someone played it, it could be a god. He then just needs to defeat the god who cast this curse. She said yes, and he, confident, looks into her eyes and says he will defeat whoever cursed her and cure her, whatever the cost, and she will also help him. But she gets up, saying she will help. After all, she is curious to see who would have cursed her. And now that our Tsukasa's training will begin, he will go to dungeons every day to gain experience, to challenge a mythical level dungeon. He just said he would really like to do it, but he still has to go to school. That school he attends is named after Tenketsu, and everyone there is awakened. That school is a specialized school for those who want to become adventurers, but anyway, they are a team from now on, and he will cooperate with her, and she with him. 3 days later, a day off, in the dungeon organization in Japan. A guy is denying him entry into a dungeon without a group. He thinks this is a piece of cake. The woman continued saying that the level difference is extremely high, and it is common for a person who faces monsters alone to face monsters of a much lower level than theirs. This means he will have to face slimes, goblins, and only then will he have a fight against a tall monster. In other words, it is reckless to send him to a high level as a solo adventurer, even more so at a low level. His level is 4, and the monsters that appear in that beginner ranking dungeon in the Goblin lair are at least level 5. That's a lot of difference. She just said those are the rules, unfortunately, and she just thinks she's going to turn this woman into mincemeat. How insolent. Unfortunately, he can't show his true adventurer card to them. After all, he is now level 25 and has a copy plagiarism skill that stores all the skills copied from him. The last time he entered a dungeon, he was still level 4, and his skill was copy, and the data is all archived there. He became level 25 and now has a completely different skill that would become a pain in the ass if they find out, that's for sure. She just calls him lazy, tolerant, and he asks her to leave, but she says no, it's too early to go home. He'd better try using wordplay. The last skill he acquired, maybe he'll get something more. That's the skill he had copied before, but you're so connected that it's forbidden to activate any type of skill in there, right? He then decides to try and activates it, asking if it is possible for him to enter a dungeon alone. The woman, already hypnotized, only asks him for his ID card to process his request. No one there will know that he used the skill, right? And it just says that a word game cannot be detected. It's a divine skill. Damn. Apparently, Prota greatly underestimated this woman and was perhaps a little disrespectful. A few moments later, the two arrived at a room that had the dungeon portal, a huge metallic structure that emitted a bluish glow. The dungeon gate that allows you to enter and leave any dungeon you want. Tsukasa then entered his card into the system, and a voice said that the gate was opening. Good luck on your first solo dungeon. Tsukasa thought that whatever monster he faced, his only goal would be to break Mayo's curse, and he would kill even a god if necessary. He thought this as he entered the portal. Tsukasa and Locke were transported to the Goblin lair floor. Locke asked what they were going to do first. Tsukasa took the sword and said he wanted to see how much stronger he became. Then they heard a low sound coming from the corner. A goblin appeared, a level 5 goblin. Tsukasa just says that this was the beginning of everything, and attacked with enormous speed, swinging his sword, and the goblin fell dead instantly, an easy fatal victory. He is now very satisfied. After all, no goblin could do it before, but Locke didn't like it at all. After all, why is he so satisfied with killing an animal as weak as that? Goblins are not challenges. No. Tsukasa then took the magic stone and asked it to make him happy for a while. This is the first time he has defeated a monster alone. Locke just says, of course, rolling his eyes, saying he was still level 25. Why was he so happy killing a mere goblin? Tsukasa then began to say that what had made him very strong were her mana particles. He could defeat goblins without even breaking a sweat, and thanked Locke again. She patted her cheek, saying it was a very simple thing. And now, they decide to go deeper. They want to get to the boss's office today. Tsukasa then started climbing stairs to the 5th floor, and Locke was finding everything so boring. Is it what she was waiting for, right? Locke, scratching his cheek, just says that he was expecting an exciting fight, but those monsters over there are nothing. That's the real problem. Locke pointed and said that reinforcements had appeared. A huge wave of goblins waited for them at the end of the corridor. Was this already the boss's room? No. He ran into the wave of goblins with his sword cutting through the air, shouting that the first to attack would win. Their blows were fatal. The goblins fell like dry leaves from a tree with their bodies split in half by Tsukasa's sword. At first, he was very worried, wondering which monsters would appear. But even so, he massacred them with the same ease. But each wave that fell, a new appearance, and Tsukasa was finding everything very boring. He then swung his sword high into the air with several bolts of lightning, but Locke screamed it was too late, and he released the vanguard, causing everything there to explode into lightning darkness. The goblins were reduced to ashes, but the power was a shock to the system, and he fell to his knees, vomiting blood. Locke said, this is the price of using divine techniques with a weak body. Tsukasa was extremely confused after all. This hadn't happened before during the Fenrir fight, but this has a very obvious explanation. When he was using Vanguard on Fenrir, the Celestial Authority was activated, and he wasn't using his own body. She then began to forbid him from using Celestial Authority or any of Fenrir's abilities from now on. Then, a system appeared announcing that the skills had been blocked. Now, Tsukasa was perplexed. Locke just said that it was getting too easy, right? And they should keep it there as if it were an ultimate. Tsukasa was hating those naughty gods. Then, they finally arrived at the boss's room. A very slender and extravagant door for a goblin, right? A final boss of the dungeon, the Goblin King. He has an ability to summon subordinates. This means he can summon more goblins, and this is the ultimate test of whether the Awakened has what it takes. Tsukasa then opened the doors, and a round room was revealed, and on the other side, a throne where the Goblin King sat. For a mere goblin, Locke was saying that he was feeling extremely confident. Tsukasa then raised his sword and asked if he should be scared. The Goblin King stood up with a huge club in hand. All that aura of power emanated from him, and he was level 15. Black smoke started to accumulate at his feet. Second, but weaker goblins began to appear. The Goblin King had used the summoning skill, but Tsukasa thought that it wasn't a big deal compared to a Fenrir. Locke said he wouldn't deal with this alone, not a chance. The Goblin King now began to emanate his full dark aura, and all of his subordinates also became covered in magical energy. And a notification window said that all the monsters were in a frenzied state of madness. And look what Locke did. She kept laughing, saying it was for her own good and wished good luck. It chipped. She truly was a god of war. A worthy battle between Tsukasa and the Goblin King was about to begin. The Goblin King's eyes glowed an evil red. Then his lackeys advanced. Tsukasa ran too, slashing them with his sword. Locke, on the other hand, looked on as he said, if he couldn't defeat these useless things, he wouldn't be worth it. Tsukasa continued slashing all the goblins frantically. Unlike before, where one hit was enough to kill them, now it was no longer possible. After all, they had extra help. After he killed a group, he retreated to prepare for the next strike, his entire body covered in blood. He created more distance, waiting for the perfect opportunity to kill everyone at once. The bodies of goblins covered the entire floor. He is unable to land a fatal blow because of the buff Locke gave them. But besides that, the main problem was the beast roaring and sending more goblins towards him. He roared louder and louder with such tremendous strength that his veins were almost turning into lightning. The goblins continued to arrive in droves, and it won't do any good to kill those weak goblins. No. He has to finish off the Goblin King. After all, he is the one with the berserk status, and the goblins he is killing also have the same buff status. He continues slaughtering more goblins, thinking that he needs to end this battle as quickly as possible. He then charges towards the Goblin King while he is roaring, saying that he will seal all of his skills so he won't cause any more trouble. Then, activate a word game, telling the goblin not to use any more skills. Wordplay is so strong that he starts to trap the Goblin King, but he is too strong and breaks all those chains and jumps towards Prota extremely fast. He throws a punch at Tsukasa, who manages to block it with his sword, but is thrown away with great force. He manages to stop it with the help of the sword. Locke says he has the right idea. It would have worked if she hadn't given the berserk berserker status buff. He realizes that the Goblin King's skills have not been sealed. No. He starts to roar even more, and another wave of berserker goblins heads towards Tsukasa. Locke goes on to say that the enemy he wants to face is a god, so the only thing he can do to fight back is to win every challenge she gives him and become stronger in a very short period of time. That's right. The one who placed the curse on Mayo is the boss of a mythical ranked dungeon, just like Locke. And he's just struggling to defeat a low-level enemy like that? Still want to save your sister? Still want to fight? He swings his sword and says yes, of course he can. Confidently, an eye for an eye, he advances, tooth for a tooth, and slaughters several goblins on his extremely fast path. He continues to launch several cuts and advance towards the Goblin King. The Goblin King, extremely furious, looks towards our boy and realizes the imminent danger. He roars even louder, trying to summon more underlings. Then Tsukasa smiles and says he's going to borrow his skill to see what happens. His plagiarism skill is activated, and he has successfully copied the target skill. He then begins to activate the summons of his subordinates, but will he get out of there, huh? Even he is surprised. An immense blue light appears, and from inside a growl comes, and we see none other than a Fenrir, but a Betrayal. Damn, now it's chipped, my son. I thought it was going to be another legion of goblins. Tsukasa looked in disbelief. Is this really serious? A poor wolf cub barked happily and began to rub itself affectionately against his knee, growling very softly. Locke started to laugh, watching it all. Tsukasa was extremely irritated by the girl's laughter and mentally cursed her as a brat. He then looked away, confused, and started looking at the cub. Observing, he thought, what? Is it possible that this Fenrir is the same Fenrir he lost in that mythical dungeon? Even though that Fenrir was small, he could notice similarities much like the monster he faced before. The wolf cub sat next to Tsukasa, watching that wave of goblins that was approaching quite quickly. Then, he started running towards all the enemies, and with a powerful jump, he gave a loud bark. The sound echoed throughout the place, and the goblins flew to pieces, hit by the power of the little wolf cub. Tsukasa was now surprised and watched his new battle partner. The wolf cub was wagging his tail quite happily, looking at his new master, and now perhaps Tsukasa changed his mind and started stroking the animal's head, and he happily stuck out his tongue and closed his eyes, enjoying the affection. Tsukasa asks the wolf if he will continue fighting on his side, and the little wolf just barked, putting his head in his master's hand. But the Goblin King was furious and let out an extremely loud roar, which shook everything there. Tsukasa looked at the wolf cub, saying that he will leave it there for him. The cub howled at the two of them, then they jumped off the ground in sync. Little Fenrir jumped over the wave of opponents while Tsukasa attacked the goblins, thinking he was no longer alone. The Goblin King, extremely furious, swung his club towards the protagonist. Tsukasa braced himself and held back the attack with his sword and shouted with tremendous fury, and with a strong pull, he repelled the Goblin King's blow. He saw the monster approaching again. He aimed at the enemy's legs. The enemy fell to the ground, his face distorted in fury, and a roar escaped his mouth, while his eyes turned extremely red. Are you crazy? Then the little wolf cub returned, and a bluish aura emerged from the crowd of monsters, with a victorious and calm look. Tsukasa stopped in front of the fallen monster, out of breath, poor thing. He pointed the tip of his sword at the golem's head, and gathering all his strength, struck it right in the face. And after that, for Fenrir to attack the monster from above, hitting with a powerful blow. You're crazy. Tsukasa also attacked from above, driving his sword into the goblin's skull. It's over, he shouted. The monster immediately let out a scream of agony, and battle dust dissipated throughout the place. Tsukasa sheathed his sword, and Locke appeared behind him. With Fenrir by her side, she clapped her hands to use the summoning of subordinates against the Goblin King himself. It was an extremely smart move. Tsukasa then took a crystal in his hands with a smile on his face. But Locke was already thinking that our Tsukasa, he was thinking about just defeating the master of an initial dungeon. Tsukasa knew that the opponents there were very weak. He then closed his eyes and thought how, as a low level, he had managed to defeat a dungeon master alone. I know, like my son, the power of the script. He knew he would need to try harder and harder to achieve his goal. He looked at the dark blue crystal in his hands and told Mayo to wait a little longer, that he would be able to save her. While Locke was looking at the wolf cub very curiously, what is she going to call this little animal? And he just said he was going to call him Luffy. Looks like you like that name, huh? He continued rubbing himself against Tsukasa's legs. He patted the wolf's head again and said that now was the time to end this and sell all the magic stones they had obtained and buy some really delicious food for our Fenrir and also for Mai. Locke ran after Tsukasa, saying he wanted candy too. In the dungeon management organization, an employee was asking about him clearing a dungeon by himself. Tsukasa placed all the magical stones in front of the woman, saying that it was proof of his victory, and he wanted to exchange all those crystals for money. The woman, extremely surprised, asked to wait a little while they should exchange the stones for money, while wondering how. How did this level 4 guy enter the dungeon alone and get so much stone? Tsukasa realized that that woman was doubting the veracity of her words, but with money in hand, she was fine. He passed through a crowd of people. Among them he saw Kakaroo, Riku, and Atu, accompanied by a girl. Everyone was dressed in very casual clothes. Kakaroo was asking the girl if she would like to join the team, calling her Hoshino Ren. Tsukasa thought that girl was the first to call him by name at the academy. Hoshino Ren shook her braid aside. She wasn't interested. The boys are surprised. Did she mean that? Kakaroo didn't like it at all, you know? Tsukasa laughed very softly. That girl was very direct with her words. But she soon realized that Tsukasa was watching everything. Kakaroo and his team found themselves surprised. Tsukasa turned around, confused, surprised, as the boys shouted his name. Hoshino Ren asked him to wait while she approached. Tsukasa said he didn't expect to find her there, and neither did she. She continued saying that she went there especially to look for him, and he didn't understand anything. She got a call from the receptionist she knows. She said there was a guy who cleared a dungeon by himself, and look, he was only at level 4, and she thinks he already knows who she's talking about, right? That girl, Hoshino Ren, studied in the same class as Kakaroo, and was the best student at Tetsu Academy. She was very attractive, and the media idolized her, calling her the new rising star. Tsukasa imagined himself with Hoshino Ren, but thought he wasn't worthy of a girl like her. Back in reality, Tsukasa asked Hoshino Ren what he had discovered about the dungeon matter. Locke was talking to the receptionist, who had probably told her everything. What a gossip. Was it a mistake to enter the dungeon through the guild? Tsukasa had a look on his face that just made a mistake. Damn, but naturally, she is extremely curious. And if it's hard to tell, he'd better show her his die card, unless he's trying to hide something from her. Damn, you put him against the wall, huh? Is he really hiding something? But Locke says in his mind that she seduced him so easily, while he says no, he's not being seduced. Yes, those rosy cheeks say otherwise, right, my son? But he was supposed to speak to Locke in his mind, and he said it out loud. And she didn't understand him. He said it was nothing. So you just had to show your die card, right? He started taking his die card out of his pocket, while in the background the guys had already seen him there. How long has Kisaragi been? Everyone heard that guy got out safely. He said it's great to see Kisaragi again, and they are so happy to see him safe and sound. The 3 cynical boys kept saying that they expected nothing less from a member of their group. Kisaragi was not at all pleased to see these guys. A guy keeps insisting that girl join the team, that this will be the last time he proposes. After all, they will be the strongest group in all of Japan. But before he said the bread, the girl already turned around, talking to Kisaragi, asking him to show her his card now. He left the guy talking to the walls. You're crazy. Kisaragi then shows it, and she notes that he is at level 15 with copying ability, and has some skills now. She had a hunch, but it really was him. He cleaned it himself. Very interesting. A group back there can't believe this guy cleared a dungeon by himself, and she, extremely happy, says that he managed to defeat a dungeon boss. Damn, thank God. He managed to update the information on his fake die card, but it was our Locke who updated it. He should be thanking her, right? She starts to think that he managed to clear a low-level dungeon, and also has so many hidden talents, while Kisaragi thinks it's all thanks to Locke. But the boys already think that guy is lying. There's no way this guy clears a dungeon alone. Is it impossible? Maybe a failure? With a shitty skill like he has? No chance. Some way he thought of cheating, I'm sure. And if he confesses, he will stop talking. The girl quickly said that there was no way he could forge a fake die card. She then turns to him again and begins to deduce that since he is clearing dungeons alone, that means he is single. She then had a brilliant idea to form a group with him so they could clear a dungeon together one day. Damn, he refused that little guy who wanted to be the strongest group in Japan and accepted that scumbag. A guy goes crazy because she was supposed to be in his group and chose that guy instead of him. That guy must be deceiving her. There's no way he could have completed that dungeon. He starts to say that he won't hold a grudge for this unless she joins him. This way, it'll be extremely easy for them to clear intermediate rank dungeons. The girl then looks at him and asks if he hasn't finished speaking yet. Talking too much, Pumpkinhead. The woman said that Kizarak cleared a dungeon by himself. See what you did, huh? Besides playing with these two braggarts. Besides, she never liked people like him, saying that with a smile, "You're crazy." That was a shock, and the last thing she knows of all the horrible things those guys did. Does this mean that, besides our protagonist, they threw more people to die for them? A guy then deduces that Kizarak told that woman everything. While Kizarak thinks he could come up with some excuse to get rid of that guy, what should he do? While he's thinking, the guy is getting ready to punch him, but inevitably, the protagonist bats his hand away and takes distance very quickly. A guy is not happy about that. You think he's trying to humiliate him in front of everyone. Then gather a ball of energy in your hand. Kizarak just acts calmly, and he keeps gathering more and more energy and tells Kizarak to shut up and throws that ball towards him. But before that power left his hand, the girl stopped all that power extremely quickly. She starts to say that it is extremely forbidden to use skills outside of a dungeon, but he just said that it's not his fault. Kizaraki is lying. The girl starts to say that she is extremely surprised. After all, he managed to say it head on. That guy is a tremendous liar. She then takes Kizaraxi's hand and says, "Come on, don't mix with this riffraff." But the guy stands there watching them both away, saying he'll take that mask off him someday. After all, Rashigani is his, and no one else's. We are now in an early rank dungeon, the Kobold settlement. Tsukasa and Hoshino found themselves in the middle of the battlefield, facing several creatures with shining swords and shields. That was the Kobold settlement. It was a basic dungeon with a recommended level of 15. Tsukasa had followed Hoshino there because she asked him to, but he didn't understand why. While Hoshino was playing a little song with a carefree look, Tsukasa was very confused, asking if she wanted to fight those monsters alone. She told him to relax, because there was no problem there for her. He was just supposed to watch how she was going to defeat 3 kobolds with tremendous ease. The kobolds ran towards the girl with swords and a war cry, but she jumped and attacked the monsters with 2 quick movements, and Tsukasa was surprised by her incredible skill. Locke, in Tsukasa's head, told him to focus on Rin's sword. But does she know about that sword, huh? That sword of hers was surrounded by a golden aura. When Locke was going to talk more about the sword, he was interrupted by Hoshino's voice, saying that it was Tsukasa's turn for him to show what he was capable of doing. Then, a kobold headed towards Tsukasa. Tsukasa went into fight mode, while Hoshino shouted at him to get it done. A monster jumped overhead, holding its weapon, but Tsukasa jumped to avoid the kobold's sword, without letting his guard down. These monsters are smarter than goblins. The girl continued saying that there are 2 ways to destroy them. Either the shield breaks the shield with force or attacks its weak points. Tsukasa naturally followed the advice and cut off the kobold's head with such ease. Hoshino now smiled. She thought that Tsukasa was doing better than she imagined, and that maybe she could invite him to her team. The girl even clapped for the guy. Hoshino said he was doing well. She asked him to perform a test in front of the boss's room and talked about a monster that was a kind of mini-boss. They then found on a battlefield trees rocks, pointed like a dandelion. A system notification popped up again, stating that the level 15 Kobold general was on the way. Now a huge beast-like creature appeared before them, wearing armor and a sword, and behind him there was a crowd of enemies. Are you crazy? First they need to get rid of the minions. He started attacking the kobolds together with Hoshino, when suddenly the Kobold general himself attacked them, making him jump away. Then a new wave of kobolds surrounded the main monster. There was no point in killing the lackeys. Hoshino then realized that that boy was smarter than she thought. Is it what Kakaroo would do in that situation? Tsukasa continued saying that it was better for them to finish off the smaller kobolds, and then went on an attack against the main monster. Hoshino agreed to the plan and asked him to put everything into action. The 2 of them together quickly eliminated a huge wave of enemies extremely quickly. In the rush of battle, Tsukasa asked if Hoshino's guild had any objections to his dungeon raids with other smarties. The girl, still throwing powerful blows, began to say that she planned to leave the guild. Tsukasa, more surprised and after the battle, would explain everything. Smiling, she said to him. She rushed towards the Kobold general, striking the monster's shield with a strong, thunderous blow. Right behind her, Tsukasa attacked the enemy in the stomach, dealing a critical wound. The monster growled, and Hoshino shouted for him to continue attacking. After all, This was the time she was going to end him. A new wave of kobolds jumped over them, protecting the kobold general. Tsukasa and Hoshino were forced to jump away and observe the new wave of creatures. The girl became extremely angry and stamped her feet on the ground. They were almost there. She, with tremendous anger, began to take out Kakaroo's fury on the monsters. That girl fought and screamed that she would never join Kakaroo's team and that she preferred to fight alone, and screamed even more. An hour of fury gathered around Hoshino. Tsukasa, confused, asked if Hoshino, yes, really wanted to leave the biggest guild, Bloodshade, like this, all of a sudden. Hoshino said yes, and Tsukasa was increasingly surprised. The very underdog girl said that no matter how many advantages she has, she also has twice as many problems and stress. She fights these monsters to vent all her anger. She raised her hand, explaining that her skill had a long attack range and was a little weaker in one-on-one combat. She, surrounded by a golden aura, asked the stars to listen and the rains to fall. A shower of golden light fell on the crowd of monsters. A spell was cast. Tsukasa shielded himself from the shock. He now understood the power of an awakened elite. Even if she has weaknesses, she is incredibly strong. You're crazy. That battlefield turned into precious blue stones obtained from battles. All those stones were scattered around that floor. Hoshino stretched calmly and said she felt renewed. Now, all that was left was the final boss, but she needed a break. The two then sat on a rock, and the girl handed Tsukasa a bottle of water and asked if he had heard of the great hero. But Tsukasa thinks he was the first adventurer to clear a heroic-level dungeon in Japan, and he even tried to try hard to remember the hero's name. Hoshino says that hero's name was Meshereka Dojiro, but that was his old name, wasn't it? He was a grandfather of hers. After he got married, he changed his name to Hoshina. That sword there was the sword he gave her. And that's not all, my dears. Her grandfather always told all kinds of stories about the dangerous journeys he took with his companions, to explore a vast world free from anyone and anything. Her dream is to be able to experience this kind of fairy tale adventure too. And naturally, that's why she wanted to form a guild. She then tries to hypnotize our boy by saying that maybe if he could borrow his strength, she could get there. Our boy blushes, doesn't he? And he starts to stutter. Yeah, you were me, so I'd be happy. She gets up, and now it's time to go to the final boss room. So they continue their journey and observe the room from a huge door. But before they can enter, there are already people waiting for them, then saying that they are taking too long, and they were waiting for Yoshina, and also for that incompetent piece of shit. The two look at each other, and she says, what a coincidence, right? Find him there. What is he doing there? And he says, but isn't it obvious, my dear? He's just there to help his irreplaceable friends. While the Tsukasa says, this is a pure lie coming from him. She also didn't really believe that that guy doesn't have many friends, and he keeps walking, saying he was just there to prevent his friends from doing something without thinking. And also his father even promoted newbies with equipment he asked for. Half armor for one, and a shoulder pad for the other. Okay, nice new equipment. You're just seeing what's new for him, right? The girl then tells him to challenge the boss if he wants, since they arrived first. The simple rules are basic. Whoever arrives first has the right to challenge the boss first. This is the basic rule among all adventurers, and he says he's going to prove he's serious. After all, he aims for the top, and she will see all of his glory in action. The three then go inside. While he says that that bastard will just watch them go into the boss's office and won't be able to do anything, but she just said that they will just watch, and that maybe they can challenge the boss another time. And he continues saying that he will prove to them about his desire to reach the top. Everyone there will see and watch his glory from the box. But in her living room, our dear Locke is watching everything on her tube television from her box. She was not at all pleased. After all, that guy is mocking them. Maybe she should pull some strings to make everything a little more dangerous for him. And there's the level 20 Kobold King, the boss of the Kobold dungeon. The Kobold King, in addition to having the same skill as the Goblin King, of summoning all monsters, he also has a powerful thunderblade in his hand. The guys are determined to face that monster. While the disturbed one is Dano, the other two are bringing up the rear, killing all the smaller animals. He continues to launch several fireballs towards the Kobold King. His group is undoubtedly strong, but will they defeat the Kobold King? He continues boasting, asking her if she liked his power, but suddenly Tsukasa hears a voice shouting, telling him to fill himself with madness, become a tyrant who will bring all the destruction to this world. Then a thick, dense mist begins to emanate from the Kobold King, and he roars, rising from level 20 to 25 and now into his berserker state. The guy then launches several fireballs towards the king, but the king continues walking towards him. Nothing can stop him. He then imbues his sword with a dense red aura and launches several shocks at Kakaroo. and then gives a sharp blow to the side with a sword, just to humiliate the boy more. The shock was so great that he hit his back against the wall, which broke. Damn! Not even Yoshino understands what happened and what the meaning of it is, but he knows that it was Locke who pulled the strings. She just says that this is a punishment for him to get in their way. The Kobold King is about to finish him off, and he, on the ground all broken up, tells the monster to stay away from him. Okay now, right? But in the following moments, as he whimpered and crawled on the ground, the girl already protected him very easily, saying that his strength is completely ridiculous. Our Tsukasa, he just watched everything, and Locke called his attention that if this continued, that girl would be in danger. The Kobold King has hatred in his eyes, smiling. He knows he's going to finish off everyone there, but in the next moment, the protagonist advances towards him and kicks him right in the middle of the line with tremendous force, throwing him away extremely quickly. Everyone there is shocked, and Tsukasa just said to get everyone there and get out of there quickly, that he will defeat that monster, and he alone is pointing in the direction of the Kobold King and his vassals, while the king screams and roars, emanating a dense and purple, frightening aura. One guy already told him to stop playing. There's no way a piece of trash like that could defeat a boss in this dungeon, but he's completely blown up, poor thing, after just 2 hits. Yoshino said she will leave everything in Kizuraki's hands. Carry that bastard, Tsukasa. It draws the goddess's attention that she could stop using these tricks to always make things difficult for him. He then appears his faithful partner, Fenrir, and the guy can't believe he has this type of creature. Yoshino is enchanted by that very cute little animal. Now the two go towards the king, and he is in charge of the kobolds, while he goes after the Kobold King. The king defends his attack and throws him away, but instead of falling, he gains momentum and heads towards the monster again. He manages to make a perfect cut on the animal's shoulder, and the animal starts to scream and roar loudly, but that cut was very shallow, lacking more strength. The monster roared again, even louder. With that last strike, he managed to copy the Thundering Blade. That strike increases the user's weapon's stats and increases the strength and rate of attacks, and can even paralyze the target for a few seconds. He thinks that blow would definitely be a pain to deal with, but now he's the one with that power. The two face each other. Kizuraki just tells Luffen to come at him. Luffen, from afar, launches an attack with his claws, which cut the Kobold King from beginning to end, but it wasn't enough for him to lay down. No, he starts to growl a lot and order all his subordinates to go upstairs. The protagonist then decides to use his Thunderblade skill, and it has another buff to his weapon, huh? And effect 2 is nothing more, nothing less than unleashing an attack that stuns any target hit. The king there continues roaring, receiving several consecutive attacks, and then Tsukasa advances towards the monster. The monster notices, but it's too late. Kizara that Tsukasa stuck the entire sword into the monster's chest, saying that it ends there. The monster roared even louder and began to shatter into pieces, completely defeated. He exploded in a clash of thunder, lighting up the entire room, and then Yoshino saw him with a crystal in his hand smiling and thought that it was clearly him. Then we went back to Tsukasa's house. Locke starts to say that spending his time in a dungeon would be much more useful, but he can't do anything, poor guy. He still has to go to school. Furthermore, there he will find more information about portals. He may also be able to find some clues about who put that curse on his sister, but she keeps saying, levitating the apple, that a dungeon is the best way to get strong and ready, and then he disappears from there, telling him to do as he wants, and she will find something interesting in the gym store. So, at Tetsu Gym, there he is. He's the talk of the room. People there thought he had died, and another said he was a failure trying to be an adventurer, poor guy. The gossip spread wildly, and he knows that apparently people consider him dead without a doubt. But there she is, thanking Kizuraki again, but he just said that he should be the only one for thanking him for the lesson that Yoshino gave him. She starts to talk about the new dungeon that they will face. It is intermediate rank, and it is called Abode of the Dead. She still doesn't know the limit of our protagonist's strength, but soon she will discover everything about all his secrets, and definitely, he also suspects her. He also shouldn't have been so flashy, using his skills right in front of her. No, but while the two talk, everyone in the room is paying attention to it. Look, Yoshino's being friendly with this loser, huh? Without thinking that they could go to a dungeon together, she asks if he is free today, after school precisely. So, look who's there. A guy disturbing Kizara again. He comes in screaming, asking how he has the courage to appear there today. but Yoshino crosses her arms and says that that sentence is hers. How does he have the courage to talk to them there? The two stare at each other, while Tsukasa is thinking that it's going to become a dojo again. He then points the finger at our protagonist Kizarak and asks him to fight him now. After all, he will expose all the lies he has been making for everyone to see. Our Tsukasa. There's no reason to fight him, but look who's got that macabre smile. A guy keeps yelling that he cleared a dungeon by himself. No chance. If he cleared a dungeon alone, will he yellow for the duel? He was already saying he was going to refuse the request, but Locke tells him to accept it. He thinks he doesn't want to stand out anymore, otherwise he'll cause a lot of trouble. But she says she's quite bored, and maybe this will be interesting to entertain her. And he should also tell him to bring all his friends to participate in that fight, and above all, he pushed our protagonist to his death in that dungeon, and it's time for him to show who is in charge now. A protagonist thinks it would suck if that happened again. Maybe she's right in her actions, but it's better to sort things out here, after all. He then decides to fight him, telling him to also bring his two friends. After all, he will finish everyone off in the blink of an eye, so no one will have any excuses to lose. Damn, that was the last straw. He starts screaming and his veins start popping out, saying, "Is that incompetent piece of shit talking about him? Who do you think you are? How daring!" But Locke is watching everything from the box. There's nothing more fun than an old fight, huh? She then decides to add a bet. Here's the deal. If he wins, he will leave Yoshino and leave the guild, and have HQ approve the registration of her new guild. After all, the director is his father, right? And he has the authority to do this. Her dream goes far beyond a guild. Yoshino blushes completely. He remembered her dream, but Kakaroo didn't. He calls the protagonist arrogant, saying that after that fight, he will turn into fertilizer. So, at the Tetsu Academy, at the training ground, there are the three of them. Whoever falls or surrenders first loses. Everyone agrees. After all, he thinks our Tsukasa will lose first. The protagonist just swings his sword, making a lot of wind, but that isn't going to be a fair fight, no. The guy then launches a fireball, and with just milliseconds left for it to hit the protagonist, he dodges. But look who's on the side, ready to punch the protagonist right in the face. But unfortunately, he couldn't. The protagonist dodged both attacks, and the guy hit the ground with his hand, which broke the entire floor, damn it. Another one came soon after with the kick, shouting at him to stop dodging and take it all. And the other has already launched lightning, which the protagonist defended with his wooden sword. A guy was screaming, gathering more flames in his hand, saying he wanted to burn him until he was crispy. Are you crazy? He launches a huge firestorm engulfing the entire arena. Yoshino was extremely worried about the protagonist, while the guy said that once a failure, always a failure. A bastard will never be more than a bastard, and perhaps he will regret all his deeds and lies in his afterlife. But look who's there! Silva is alive and without any scratches or burns. Hours tearing through all those flames, and he said no, he's not dead. His plagiarism skill was activated. And look, he copied the Herculean Force skill, and also the lightning skill. Locke on the other side communicates telepathically with Tsukasa, saying that she is getting bored with this fight. Does he think he'll beat him with those pathetic flames? But Tsukasa inside is shaking. If he wasn't at a higher level, he would already be dead, without a doubt. And Locke is telling him not to lose, but he said he doesn't need to say anything. He will win. He goes after the three and hits him with a punch, but he holds that guy's hand like it was nothing, using his new Herculean strength ability. Everyone in the audience can't believe that that guy is holding back the blow from that other guy and then immediately punches him right in the stomach. Crazy. The shock was so great that the shock wave went through the guy's stomach and out his back. Damn it. While the guy was in the air, he turned his entire body. With the tip of his toes, he gave a huge kick inside the guy, throwing him away with tremendous force. Now there are only two left. Kakaroo is shouting a lot, calling our protagonist a bastard. But the Tsukasa, determined, says he will finish him then and there. But before finishing him, he will use his trump card. And it is nothing more and nothing less than a like on this video. We hope you liked it. Comment below suggestions and comparisons. That's it, thanks, and stay tuned for the next video. Tsukasa, extremely serious, warned Toto that it was time to end this fight. Toto rebate. Don't be hasty, you incompetent scum, summoning a rapid flurry of fireballs. Several fireballs head towards Tsukasa. Tsukasa cuts through the flames with his sword, like a legitimate protagonist. Everyone was surprised, because they underestimated Tsukasa. Hein watched everything and said that Tsukasa was apparently having fun. Tsukasa was now teasing, asking if that guy wanted to give up now. Toto, enraged, swore he was going to kill Tsukasa. Tsukasa teased even more, telling him to come calmly with his friends. A friend of Toto, with lightning crackling in his hand, shouted at him to go to hell, and lightning is thrown at Tsukasa. In the blink of an eye, Tsukasa appears close to the attacker, catching him off guard. Tsukasa hits his opponent's shoulder and says that it was him that he should go to hell. Tsukasa activates a beam, electrocuting the enemy. The opponent now falls unconscious, and Tsukasa walks towards Toto. There's only you left. Toto realizes that Tsukasa copied Inu's lightning, a skill with a low chance of success. It's a one-time use, and he hopes Tsukasa's luck runs out quickly. Toto, smiling, says he will show the difference between his skills and Tsukasa's skills. Locke finds Toto's confidence ridiculous. Tsukasa wants to keep his enhanced ability a secret. Different from mere imitation, he avoids using his Herculean strength or the lightning again. Tsukasa planned to end that fight right then and there. Toto starts telling him not to think he's superior because he beat others, but Tsukasa says he talks a lot and fights little, and he can run away if he's scared. Now, an angry Toto attacks, and Tsukasa blocks the attack. A huge wave of flame engulfs Tsukasa. Hein worries, but Tsukasa emerges from the smoke unharmed. You've done this before. Learn a new trick. Tsukasa reveals that the attack didn't hit him. Toto, now discredited, insists he got it right. Tsukasa says the explosion wasn't his. Toto now realizes that Tsukasa copied his ability during the previous firestorm, something he swore was impossible. Tsukasa, stepping forward, says he will end this now. Toto throws a fireball, but Tsukasa cuts it easily. Tsukasa dodged the flames with greatness. Toto nervously tries to hit Tsukasa, who dodges and gets behind him. Slowly, Toto turns around, but Tsukasa hits him with the sword. Furious, Toto is hit again, and Tsukasa. He doesn't waste any more time. He uses his words of power to paralyze Toto, and the flames erupt from Tsukasa's body. Confused, disbelieved, and defeated, Toto surrenders. Tsukasa snaps his fingers and tells him not to worry. After all, he's not going to kill him. The flames consume his entire body, and Toto screams in agony, and he falls to his knees in defeat, but refuses to accept his defeat. Tsukasa pressure, but he still fulfills his promise. Hypnotized, Toto agrees and passes out. Days later, with the help of Toto's father, Hein and Tsukasa leave the Bloody Harry Guild and join their own. After resolving some issues, Hein takes Tsukasa to the Abode of the Dead, an intermediate-level dungeon. Tsukasa asks why the choice, since the recommended level is 25, and they are lower level. Tsukasa recognizes the danger of the dungeon, home to undead monsters. Worried but hiding it, Tsukasa thinks about how to stay alert. Hein notices Tsukasa's concern, which he hides, saying that he is just thinking about strategies. Tsukasa summons Lowen, his canine pet. She's delighted. She hugs Lowen extremely excitedly. The puppy asks for help from Tsukasa, who runs away a little embarrassed. Tsukasa explains that Lowen is a familiar summoned by a skill, and Hein praises that skill. Hein tremendously astutely asks where Tsukasa copied this skill. Locke notices Hein's intelligence. Tsukasa immediately disagrees, not knowing how to respond. She understands, says she won't force him to say anything, but shows trust in him and Lufing, guaranteeing that he will be under their care. Level 23 skeleton soldiers appear. Hein approaches for combat with Tsukasa as support. With a few blows of the holy sword, she defeats several skeletons. The golden light of the sword annihilates the undead. Tsukasa and Lufing decide to help. Tsukasa kicks a skeleton, and the two protect Hein. Hey, thanks for the support. Tsukasa cuts off a skeleton's head. The skeleton's chest gem glows, and he attacks Tsukasa again. Locke questions Tsukasa's difficulty, and Hein offers to help, to prevent him from burning out. Hein begins to use his sacred sword, whose brilliance annihilates all skeletons. The power of the sacred sword impresses him, and Hein asks Lufing to collect the magic stone. Hein caresses Lufing, and they arrive at a large gate with skulls. Locke complains that she is getting bored, but Hein is confident in defeating the boss. Tsukasa asks what strategy they're going to use, and Hein just says they're going to take down a boss with a single blow. They enter an underground room. A level 38 Undead Lord is on a throne, surrounded by several subordinates. Tsukasa has never been in a boss fight, in an intermediate dungeon, and he soon asks about Hein's strategy, who states that he will use a single skill. Tsukasa, extremely nervous now, asks if Hein is joking. She confirms that she is serious, and goes on to explain that fighting this type of boss requires a quick approach, because its ability to create undead is extremely dangerous. Hein's ability can defeat everyone, but it needs to charge. Tsukasa offers to buy time along with Lufing and Hein. Now extremely confident, watches Tsukasa create a fireball and activates the Flame Master. While Lufing advances against the skeletons, Locke begins to explain that the summoned skeletons disappear after taking enough damage, and he decides to use a usual tactic, the Thunderblade, to electrocute the skeletons, and attacks. His attack is blocked by skeleton guards, and Tsukasa is pushed back. Lowen is attacked, and a huge explosion happens. The skeleton guards emit red beams. The undead skeleton lord watches them. The skeletons transform into skeleton knights, and Tsukasa wonders if this is part of the lord's skill. Locke praises the enemy's strategy of focusing on quality rather than quantity. Tsukasa finds the situation extremely worrying, and Locke remembers Tsukasa of your true enemy. He agrees and says he can handle the situation. Locke challenges him to prove it. Tsukasa concentrates the flames on his fingers and attacks a skeleton. Locke observes that he has condensed the flames. A skeleton knight falls. The others show fear. Tsukasa attacks with a bunch of flame slashes. Hein calls for Hein. Hein says she is ready to cast the powerful spell, but leave her vulnerable. Tsukasa is impressed by Hein's power, and Locke also admires her strength. With one attack, they complete the mission. Hein thanks Tsukasa for his help, who appears humble. Locke says he just bought time. Hein tells them to go back, but Lowen barks. Locke begins to warn Tsukasa of imminent danger, and lightning strikes behind them. A level 50 archdemon appears. You're crazy. Hein, now extremely confused, asks about the presence of an advanced level boss in that dungeon. She takes a teleportation stone that allows her to return to the dungeon entrance in emergencies, and asks Tsukasa to come to her. Tsukasa and Lowen run towards the stone, and the teleportation fails. Hein is disbelieved, and a hidden woman smiles. The archdemon advances on them. Tsukasa grabs his sword, ready to fight, and they accept the challenge. Tsukasa asks Locke if she set them up, which she denies. Locke suspects someone put them in this situation on purpose. Tsukasa asks if they will have to fight alone, and Locke confirms that they will. Hein asks if Tsukasa is okay. She is very worried. The archdemon shoots lightning, and Hein asks about the plan. Tsukasa wants to know how long until she uses the skill again, and it's about 5 minutes away, so she asks him to move away. Hein insists on fighting alongside him. Tsukasa argues that it is dangerous. She remembers that she also uses a sword. He agrees, but asks for caution. They plan to use Hein's ability to defeat the archdemon. The archdemon attacks them with lightning, and Tsukasa dodges. He realizes that the enemy is underestimating. Tsukasa is irritated by that archdemon's attitude. He activates the Thunderblade. Lowen attacks, but is easily defeated by his arch-rival. Tsukasa uses the Flame Master, but the attack is useless. Poor thing. That monster is extremely strong. Hein attacks and injures the archdemon, giving the team some hope. However, the archdemon counterattacks, and Hein is hit and thrown against the wall with tremendous force. Tsukasa is extremely worried, but Hein manages to get up and prepares to use his ability again. She attacks the archdemon consecutively and asks Tsukasa for help. Tsukasa attacks with his sword, and Lowen also attacks, causing a huge explosion. They observe the result. The archdemon survives, regenerating. Locke explains that those bosses at advanced levels have regenerative abilities. Locke is extremely worried. How are they going to defeat that creature? Locke suggests that they only give consecutive and continuous attacks, or a single devastating blow. This way, you won't have time to regenerate anything. Hein's ability could be crucial in this battle, but he needs to give it time to charge. Tsukasa asks Locke to undo the seal of heavenly authority, and he too realizes that the wordplay has passed. Surprised, Tsukasa thinks about telling Hein about his idea. The archdemon floats and fires several beams. Hein is confused by the whole situation. Tsukasa then activates his heavenly authority and prepare for the fight. Hein asks about the skill. Tsukasa just says that he will give her the signal to use hers. Heavenly Authority has 60 seconds left. Tsukasa attacks the extremely provocative Archdemon. He uses the skills of the Flame Master. The Archdemon counters with lightning. Tsukasa recognizes the enemy's strength. The Archdemon launches a sphere of lightning, and Tsukasa cuts it. That monster is tremendously agile. Locke worriedly warns about the time limit of Heavenly Authority, and he is determined to focus on ending the fight before a minute is up. He uses words of power to immobilize the Archdemon and attacks him with thunder and fireballs. Tsukasa keeps attacking more and more. The Archdemon tries to escape but is stopped. Hein and Lowen look on impressed. Tsukasa knows he needs to do more damage. The Archdemon uses Shadow Lightning. Tsukasa asks Hein to use the skill. She hesitates but agrees. Hein uses Turn again. Tsukasa uses Vanguard. A large explosion occurs. Hein watches closely, worried about Tsukasa, but the Archdemon survives and releases several rays. Tsukasa uses the words of power to immobilize the Archdemon again, and he copied the Thero. Now extremely surprised. Tsukasa now adapts Hein's ability to use a single powerful attack. Take out Norg, who hits the Archdemon squarely. The Archdemon begins to slowly die, feeling tremendous pain. Tsukasa looks extremely exhausted and out of breath. Locke praises him, and a monster rock falls. Hein thanks Tsukasa for saving them. Tsukasa, already relieved, says he is happy that they won, and Hein comments that if it weren't for the last attack, they would be in trouble. Hein feels that with Tsukasa, he could experience the adventures he always dreamed of. At the JDM office, they receive $1.5 million. Are you crazy? As a reward. Locke is extremely happy at the prospect of delicious food. Tsukasa levels up to level 36. Locke says that Tsukasa still needs to improve a lot, and he asks Hein if she won't report the Archdemon. Hein says no one would believe her, and asks what Tsukasa's true ability is. Tsukasa is taken by surprise, but knows he can no longer hide it. Hein questions how Tsukasa, considered a failure, got this far. Tsukasa arranges to tell Hein everything on the school roof the next day, alone. An explosion occurred in the Goblin district. Toto curses Tsukasa. Someone asks if something good happened to Toto, who reacts tremendously aggressively. A woman with pink cat ears and tails appears and taunts Toto, who attacks with flames. The woman puts out the flames easily. The woman criticizes Toto's flame, but recognizes his potential, offering him great power. Impressed, Toto asks if he can really get strong. The woman says yes. On the roof, Tsukasa starts to tell Hein the story, from Toto's betrayal in the dungeon, and Hein is surprised. Tsukasa tells about the mythical level dungeon and the person who granted it power, and Hein is indignant, in disbelief. She asks about the mythical dungeon and the power Tsukasa received. Tsukasa has tremendous difficulty explaining everything, and Hein notices the change in Tsukasa's ability, from imitating to imitating. Locke reveals himself to Hein, saying he is a god, but not an enemy. Hein is tremendously nervous. Locke explains about mythical dungeons, and introduces herself as the ruler of the Cheater's Dungeon. And Tsukasa finds that name boring and pathetic, and Locke starts to say that he gave Tsukasa power in exchange for him showing her the outside world. Tsukasa confirms that this was the deal, and this is how his ability evolved. Hein, still confused, asks about Tsukasa's true strength and perseverance. He reveals that he is fighting to save his sister Mayo from a curse. Hein asks about the curse, and Locke explains that Mayo was cursed by another god. Tsukasa continues, saying that he will continue to fight until he finds the god who cursed his sister. Hein, admired by Tsukasa's motivation, decides to help him. She also explains that she promised her grandfather that she would clear a mythical dungeon. She is tremendously motivated to find and defeat this god. Tsukasa thanks him, and they agree to call each other by name and support each other. Mayo is surprised by Hein's presence, and Hein introduces himself, explaining that he formed a guild with Tsukasa. Mayo is tremendously excited, but starts coughing violently. Tsukasa is tremendously worried, the poor thing, and Hein feels sorry for Mayu's curse. Mayo feels weak. Tsukasa takes her to her room to rest, and Hein offers to make dinner. Ella insists that Tsukasa oil. Mayo comments on her brother's personality. Tsukasa thinks about how he needs to get stronger. Days later, Tsukasa notices Toto's absence, and Hein gives Tsukasa a bento and invites him to lunch. His colleagues are surprised. Tsukasa feels tremendously uncomfortable. Some men arrive and call for Tsukasa, who is taken to a meeting room. Toto's father, the JMO director, apologizes to Tsukasa for calling him suddenly. Mr. Toto asks about the whereabouts of his son, who is missing. Tsukasa now understands Toto's absence at school and asks Mr. Toto if he suspects anything. Mr. Toto explains that Tsukasa was a suspect, but was quickly ruled out. Tsukasa asks why he was called and suggests looking for Toto where he was last seen. Mr. Toto begins to say that he has already sent a search team to the infernal dungeon M, where Toto were last seen, and Hein confirms the information. Tsukasa doesn't react. When she sees Hein, she says that Toto's name is not in the records and shows a video recording. Locke finds it tremendously suspicious. Mr. Toto explains that there are witness reports, but no records of Toto's entries. Tsukasa questions if that was really possible. Mr. Toto confirms and says that the search team has been eliminated. The second team is still investigating. Mr. Toto asks if Tsukasa noticed anything strange. Tsukasa denies it, and Locke says that the situation is more complicated than they imagined, and that he felt the presence of a god in the recording. Locke reveals that it is the same god who cursed Mayo. Tsukasa was now tremendously scared. Locke says he felt the divine presence for a brief moment. Tsukasa asks to participate in the searches. Now he's interested, right? Mr. Toto's assistant disapproves of the idea immediately, arguing about the danger. Mr. Toto worries about Tsukasa's safety, and Hein offers to go with him. Tsukasa. Mr. Toto hesitates, but Hein reveals that they found the archdemon in the abode of the dead. Says that Tsukasa defeated the archdemon, and Mr. Toto and his assistant are tremendously shocked. The assistant thinks this is impossible. Hein's team confirms the information. Mr. Toto then grants permission to Hein and Tsukasa. The assistant begins to ask and question Mr. Toto's decision, who asks for Hein's help and Tsukasa to save his son. Tsukasa and Hein prepare to go to the dungeon immediately. Hein asks for an explanation. Tsukasa reveals the possibility of the god who cursed Mayo being involved. They then enter the portal. Inside the dungeon, they find the bodies of the search team. A survivor is tremendously confused and scared. A man in a black robe attacks the survivor with fire. The man then creates several fireballs that explode, causing great destruction. The goddess praises the man and his power even more. Locke complains about the heat of that mythical infernal dungeon, which is almost advanced level. They feel intense heat, and Locke comments on it. Tsukasa realizes that Locke feels the heat even without being manifested in that place. Understands the pressure of Tsukasa, but urges caution. Keep warning Tsukasa about the dangers of that dungeon. A level 33 lizard blocks everyone's path. Tsukasa protects Hein and attacks the lizard and is pushed back with violent force. Hein dodges a new attack. Hein attacks the gecko. Tsukasa used the Master Flame. The gecko has now become a barbecue. Tsukasa understands the difficulty of that dungeon. A LVL 33 gecko and panther approach. Tsukasa use words of power. The monsters are immobilized, and Hein attacks. Tsukasa uses the Thunder Blade and causes an explosion that destroys one of the monsters. They move forward and reach the mini-boss room, a swarm of wyverns. Tsukasa uses words of power again to take down the wyverns. Tsukasa and Hein and Lowen attack. One wyvern defends itself, and the other attacks. A wyvern dies. Tsukasa is irritated by the number of dragons, and Hein shares his concern Tsukasa. Tsukasa then attacks and cuts off the wyvern's wing, and then the monster's head rolled away. The other wyverns attack. Tsukasa uses the Firestorm skill. Locke worries. After all, wyverns have resistance to fire. Then, Tsukasa combines the firestorm with thunder, and Hein is tremendously impressed. She deduces that Tsukasa used the imitator skill, and then Tsukasa usatur a halg, and Hein is tremendously amazed by the power. Tsukasa suggests that they hurry and they run towards the boss's room and don't find the search team. Locke feels something right away. There are several bodies at the scene, and Lowen barks near a man. Someone approaches, and Tsukasa asks who it is. The culprit reveals himself as Toto. Tsukasa recognizes it instantly, and Hein asks if it's really Toto, because that gold is tremendously different. Tsukasa. He asks Toto to come back, as everyone is worried. Tsukasa. He has a lot of questions, but he prioritizes getting out of that dungeon. Toto smiles. A flying monster roars. And and Tsukasa are surprised. Tsukasa asks where Toto is going, but he disappears. Locke alert Tsukasa for an imminent attack. Tsukasa, confused and in danger, he manages to defeat the monster. He cares about Toto. Hein appears and asks if Tsukasa he is well. He asks about the search party who were unconscious but alive. Hein worries about Toto too. She's sure it was Toto. Locke says that Toto is in the boss's room, and that what they saw was just an illusion, and that Toto was alive. Tsukasa now tremendously confused. He explains that, according to Locke, Toto are in the boys' room. Hein thinks about what to do, considering it too dangerous for Toto to face the boss and enemies at the same time. Tsukasa decides to go to the boss's room and asks Hein to get reinforcements. She tries to stop him. Tsukasa, you know it's reckless, but you don't want to miss the opportunity. Is thirsty, but decides to go with him. Tsukasa worries about the search team. An injured member says he will call for reinforcements and asks them to focus on the enemy. Hein gives the teleportation tool. The injured man accepts and leaves. An injured member feels indebted. He asks why Hein lied. She said it was necessary. And they then move on and find a level 45 salamander and Toto in the boss's office. Tsukasa asks Toto to take off his hood. He then reveals his tremendously red eyes and his bulging black veins. Tsukasa comments on Toto's changing appearance, and Locke warns him to be careful, but Tsukasa guarantees that he will not hold back. Hein asks what the plan is. Tsukasa will face the boss, while Hein and Lowen will take care of Toto. Hein accepts that task. Then Tsukasa. He asks them to be careful, and the salamander roars and the whole place shakes. They attack simultaneously. Tsukasa hits the salamander with an electrical attack, and Hein confronts Toto and asks if he will return. Toto responds by creating fireballs. That guy is an economist of words. Hein decides to fight seriously. Toto attacks with flames and Hein dodges and runs towards him. Lowen attacks Toto, causing a superficial wound. Hein wounds Toto in the chest. He smiles and releases a dark power, turning the flames into lava. An explosion occurs, setting the entire place on fire. Hein is tremendously surprised and asks if Tsukasa defeated the boss. He denies it, and the salamander continues roaring. Locke confirms his suspicions and says that Toto's power is similar to that of the god who cursed Mayo. Tsukasa. He asks Locke if it's true, and she confirms this information. She asks him to defeat Toto without hesitating for a second. Hein asks what the strategy is. Tsukasa decides to focus on the two enemies, but Hein, disbelieved, asks how. Tsukasa explains about the dark aura and the connection to Mayu's curse. They will fight against servants of a god, but Tsukasa, he won't hold back for a second. He asks Hein to attack with full force as well. She then casts a very powerful spell that causes a huge explosion. Tsukasa and Lowen advance. Toto appears smiling. Tsukasa and Toto face each other. Lowen attacks Toto, who blocks the attack. Tsukasa attacks again and uses lightning on Toto. Tsukasa calls out to Hein, who prepares an attack to defeat the boss once and for all. Toto runs towards him and Hein blocks Toto's attack. He then delivers a huge kick to her and evokes the master's flames. Hein destroys the daggers, but is hit and injured. Toto shouts for her to burn for him. The daggers explode. Tsukasa worries about Hein, but she soon apologizes. Tsukasa and Lowen run to Hein, and she says she's fine, but she can't keep fighting. Tsukasa. He just asks her to rest and trusts Lowen to take care of her. They prepare to fight in earnest, and their eyes now glow blue. Tsukasa attacks the salamander and uses words of power to immobilize it. He attacks Toto, who is thrown back with tremendous force. Toto throws several daggers that explode around him. Tsukasa. Tsukasa and Toto face each other. Toto shouts, asking for Tsukasa to die, and Tsukasa uses the Thunderblade and kicks Toto with tremendous force. He uses the words of power to try to make Toto sleep, and the salamander roars again. These boys just roar. Tsukasa says he has 45 seconds of heavenly authority remaining. He attacks the salamander with fireballs. Use Orsiro and Vanguard. With the sword of Tsukasa, it breaks poor thing, and the salamander gets angry again. Tsukasa tries to use magic, but his powers disappear. The effect of heavenly authority ends. Tsukasa is thrown away with tremendous force. Locke decides to intervene and physically manifests himself. She hands a flaming sword to Tsukasa, and he thanks you. Hein and Lowen watch closely. Hein feels the power of the sword. She wonders what sword it is. Loki explains that that sword is Leviathan, the mythical flame, encourages Tsukasa to use it. Tsukasa determinedly attacks the salamander, cutting off one of its legs. The salamander tries to attack with its tail, but Tsukasa cuts it off. Loki is proud of his sword. The salamander prepares a fire attack. Tsukasa counterattacks with Leviathan burning the enemy. Smoke makes vision difficult. Loki protects Rein and Lofen with a shield. She goes on to say that Tsukasa only used part of Leviathan's power. The salamander prepares for another attack. Tsukasa attacks with a very powerful flame, breaking the entire floor. The salamander is destroyed, and Rein gets up extremely impressed, but worried about Toto. She finds him and is relieved to see him well, and Loki says that Tsukasa is still far from being able to kill a god. He thanks her for her help. Loki, shameless, tells Tsukasa not to neglect his training. They feel a presence. A woman with fox ears and tails appears. Tsukasa asks who she is. The woman is Vishen, talks to Loki, and is criticized for allying with humans. Rain looks on in surprise that Vishen is a monster in human form. Tsukasa asks if it's the god he's looking for. Vishen asks how. How dare he talk to her? And Loki intervenes and transforms into his menacing form, threatening Vishen. Tsukasa is surprised by Loki's transformation. Vishen teases even more. Loki says he can kill her. Vishen asks if Loki intends to fight while protecting Tsukasa and Rein, and she threatens Loki. Tsukasa asks Vishen if she cursed Mayo. Loki reveals that her name is Tamamo no Mei, and that she is responsible for everything. Tsukasa is now haunted, and Loki asks for calm, but he ignores it and attacks Vishen, who dodges it tremendously easily. Vishen counterattacks and injures Tsukasa, who is thrown back with tremendous force. Rain worries, and Loki scolds him once again. Tsukasa uses the Flame Master, and Vishen counters the attack with his fan. Tsukasa is hit and screams in pain. Rein is surprised, and Loki explains about Vishen's ability. Vishen continues to mock Tsukasa, but praises his persistence. But that won't be enough, my dear. She realizes that he is related to the adventurer he killed, but Tsukasa doesn't understand anything she's saying. But Vishen just says he needs to defeat her to find out. Tsukasa attacks again, but Vishen uses 9 tails. A smoke screen appears. Tsukasa coughs up blood. Vishen plans to curse him too, and Rain pushes and receives the curse instead. Rain faints. The curse message appears. Vishen finds that little friendship pathetic. Tsukasa, now enraged, and Vishen watches mocking his and Ryan's reaction. Vishen reminds Tsukasa of the curse, and Loki stops her and attacks. Tsukasa recognizes Loki's presence, who asks him to be careful. Loki tells Tsukasa to take care of Rain. Vishen approaches complaining about the surprise attacks, and Loki insults her. The two laugh and threaten each other. Loki and Vishen fight. Loki tries to arrest Vishen, who breaks the chains. Loki asks Tsukasa to escape with Ryan and Lofen. Tsukasa refuses to abandon Loki. He insists that he has no chance of winning and asks him to run away. Vishen continues attacking Loki, who groans in pain. Tsukasa is extremely worried, while Vishen teases Loki. Loki asks if Vishen will run away. Vishen challenges her to try. Tsukasa insists on fighting, and Loki stops him again. Vishen tells Tsukasa to go to that 9 Tails of Beauty dungeon if he wants to save Mayu and Rain, and she also leaves a note and warns about the time limit. Tsukasa, now tremendously shackled, begins to curse Vishen, but Loki puts him to sleep using words of power. He swears revenge before passing out. Loki, poor thing, regrets not killing Vishen when he had the chance, and she swears revenge. Tsukasa now wakes up screaming, wondering where he is. Loki says, "It's good to see you," and Tsukasa asks why she is saying that he would have died. But Loki says he needs to know two things, one good and one bad. He asks which one he wants to hear first. Rain is sleeping and sweating, and Loki says that Rain was cursed by Tamaman. Tsukasa feels guilty, poor guy, and Loki says that Mayu's condition hasn't changed. If Tamaman is telling the truth, they don't have much time yet. She reveals that there is a way to defeat Otamaman, but Tsukasa needs to abandon his humanity. He accepts without even blinking. Loki opens a portal to Valhalla, the hall of the chosen by the gods, which will serve as Tsukasa's training ground. In Valhalla, Tsukasa feels tremendously weak, and Loki says the air is extremely heavy. Hildur, an armored warrior, greets Loki, and Loki introduces Tsukasa as his partner and asks Hildur to train him. Loki then leaves Tsukasa in Hildur's care. Tsukasa asks what the training will be like. Loki just says it's up to him how much he will benefit. Hildur must treat Tsukasa as an admonition. Hildur quickly accepts the task. Tsukasa accuses Loki of lying. She explains that it's a training camp, but he needs to work hard to save his friends. Hildur asks about Vishen, and Loki explains Tsukasa's situation and the curse of his sister and friend. Tsukasa declares all his determination to become stronger, and Hildur understands the situation. Loki then leaves Tsukasa in Hildur's care and commits to helping him defeat Tamamon. Hildur is level 80 and has very powerful skills. Hildur says that Tsukasa is extremely clumsy. Then he begins to explain the basis of the training. Here's the deal. Tsukasa must defeat him, and he quickly accepts the challenge. Hildur then asks if they can start, and she quickly agrees. Hildur continues watching Loki, who is tremendously impatient, and orders them to start. Hildur notices Tsukasa's weakness and attacks him. Tsukasa is thrown back with tremendous force. Hildur tells Tsukasa to get up, while Lofen worries. Tsukasa asks for his help, and Hildur decides to train the two together. Tsukasa remembers Mayo and Rain. Rain vows to defeat Hildur. The two fight, and Lofen joins the fight. Hildur praises the teamwork, but it won't be enough. He uses a shield. Tsukasa uses the Master Flames and tries a surprise attack. The guy dodges and attacks with his spear. Tsukasa, now frustrated, while Hildur continues to mock him. Loki watches the fight, reconsiders Tsukasa is better, but decides to stop that training. During the meal, Tsukasa asks if they can continue training, and Hildur says resting is also important. Tsukasa starts to argue that he doesn't have time, and Loki reveals that a year in training camp is equivalent to a day in reality. Tsukasa, disbelieved, asks why Loki couldn't have told him this before. Hildur suggests they prepare for the next day of training, and Loki watches Tsukasa eat and finds him quite troublesome. She asks what Hildur's opinion is about Tsukasa, and he only considers him weak, but very different from the other humans who challenged the gods. Loki also agrees. 3 years of training pass, and Hildur asks Tsukasa his score, which is 999 defeats and not a single victory. Hildur just says that this will be the final fight. If Tsukasa loses, he will not be able to defeat Vishen. He allows Tsukasa to use Heavenly Authority. Tsukasa then activates Heavenly Authority and attacks Hildur. They fight at high speed, and Hildur asks for more seriousness. Tsukasa uses Vanguard, and Hildur defends herself with a barrier. Tsukasa attacks from behind, and Hildur dodges. Tsukasa calls Lofen and attacks with him. Hildur is hit. His helmet shatters into pieces, revealing him to be a woman. Hildur praises Tsukasa's attack and admits defeat. Tsukasa realizes that Hildur was now a woman. It seems like he liked her, right? Hildur recognizes Tsukasa's strength and thanks her, but Loki continues to mock Tsukasa for having fallen in love with Hildur. He denies it right away. Tsukasa starts to say that he was just surprised because it's the first time he's seen Hildur's face. Loki agrees that Hildur is extremely beautiful and suggests that she should remove her armor more often. But Hildur starts saying that she always needs to be prepared for combat, and this is the justification for the constant use of armor. Loki then says it's time to hunt foxes, precisely Vishen. Loki asks Hildur to give Tsukasa a gift, and she strokes Tsukasa's head. Hangar skill, Tsukasa imitation, copy and send. That skill allows Tsukasa to go beyond his limits, but it will completely affect his body. Hildur also gives Lofen a necklace to be used if Tsukasa is in danger. And Loki begins to explain that the ability was the answer to the question about abandoning humanity. Tsukasa thanked Loki and Hildur, And Loki is moved, poor thing. Hildur says that Loki has found a good partner. Loki is proud of Tsukasa and suggests they confront Vishen. Loki asks Tsukasa's opinion, who wants to see Mayo and Ren first, because it could be the last time. Already at the hospital, where Ren was in bed, Tsukasa apologizes and says it's all his fault, but also because of her, and he manages to keep fighting, and he swears he will defeat Tamaman, whatever the cost. Then arriving at his house, he is greeted by his sister, very worried about where he has been all this time. She heard that he was sent with Ren to the hospital, but suddenly she notices that he has grown taller and looks older, and he looks all seductive. Older, taller, handsome. But most importantly, he needs to talk about something with her. Then, over tea, he tells her that he can really cure her illness, but he has to go to a mythical rank dungeon. He says yes. After all, it's his fault that Ren is suffering so much. And besides, the reason she's sick is because he entered a dungeon too, and he has no choice but to cure everyone. She is still quite worried about her little brother. She continues saying that she won't force him to stay, but she asks him to promise her that he will return safely. He smiles, takes her head, and promises that he won't leave her, and he's just gonna punch that god and go home. She's supposed to wait for him to come back. Poor thing. She's already in tears, but agreeing. Suddenly, he receives a letter, and it is none other than Loki, extremely hurried and impatient, wanting him to go quickly. He then opens that letter and a portal appears, and now it's time to challenge that goddess and save his sister. Ren also laughs. He says goodbye and enters the portal. He has already entered the hall of that goddess. She greets him, saying she is surprised. After all, he didn't run away, but while she's talking, he already draws his sword. After all, he went there just to kill her, and not to talk idle with Vishen. She asks, where is that little wolf of his? Or does he intend to fight her alone? He says yes, and that he will kill her. She then pulls out her fan and says that his perseverance is commendable, exuding all that terrifying pressure from her, but yet humans tend to be just sacrifices, insignificant creatures for gods. And she won't die easily. She begins to say that she will torture him until he begs for death, and he says he's going to show her how many sticks you can make a canoe with, and the only one who will beg for death there will be her. He will never forgive her. The two stare at each other while she calls him a damn human so he can do his best. And he also says fox. Tsukasa starts towards her as she stays still, and at the last second she manages to dodge his attack. He then launches an attack from above, and she defends with her fan, still with a smile on his face, saying that his words are very bold and that he still doesn't see anything. Then his eyes begin to glow, a bluish glow, and she asks if he has abandoned his humanity. He then delivers a tremendously strong blow to her ribs, knocking her away, saying that he had to abandon everything to be able to defeat her. After all, she is still a god, and he will do whatever it takes to achieve that. As she continues to hit the wall with that blow, he throws several fire daggers towards her. She balances herself and calls him insolent. How dare he kick a god? She swings her fan, defending against all those flaming daggers. Tsukasa keeps throwing more daggers, and she keeps defending with her fan. Several explosions in the air divide that room. After the dust settles, Loki begins to explain that that fan is a divine instrument, and his name is Ryatano Gami. He has the ability to nullify attacks, or reflect attacks and skills. Tamamon's ability is extremely powerful. It won't be very easy to defeat that woman, but that weapon of hers is a huge nuisance. She begins to exhale power from her hand, and tells him not to think too much about the battlefield, and blows. The dark arts skill is activated. Several petals appear in the air. She just says she wants to see him try to escape this ability. Those petals turn into weapons and go towards Tsukasa, trying to hit him. He dodges some, but realizes that they are guided and manages to repel others, saying how she can bet so easily with blocking that attack. Several explosions happen in that room, and she just says that he is naive. The petals of her Blade Storm attack are created with the power of her arts, and they are not weak. Just one can cause a tremendous explosion, but amidst that fog of smoke, Tsukasa appears, saying that that mere power is nothing for his human whirlwind. And now, it's time for round 2, and she calls him an annoying human and launches her petal dance once again, telling those petals to cut that arrogant human. That power goes towards Tsukasa, and he blocks everyone. Now she realizes how fast he is. She can barely follow it with her eyes. She throws more petals, telling him not to push his luck. Tsukasa holds his sword extremely strong and continuously repels those attacks, advancing calmly. Now she realized he dodged all of her dark arts. She finds this all interesting. After all, how could a human dodge and block a god's attacks? But Tsukasa catches her attention. How can she think she has time to think in the middle of the battlefield? And before she could realize it, he already struck her right in the middle of the chest. She falls to the ground, saying that his power is beyond the capabilities of a mortal body, but it still has several limitations, and the time limit is inevitable. He just says that she is right, and for that reason, he will abandon his mortality. He begins to exude incredible pressure, with a terrifying aura, saying that this will be the end of Tamamon. He activates the Hangar ability, which drastically increases physical abilities, in addition to alleviating the use of divine skills, but can also have severe consequences on his body. He's going to put his life on the line so he can kill her now. You're crazy. The kid has blood in his veins. Tamamon is now terrified, saying that he intends to steal the divine selection. Does Loki understand what she did, and calls them fools? But she says he is no fool. After all, everything he did was purely out of a desire to defeat her. And she keeps screaming that she can't ally herself with humanity. After all, there are some rules they are never allowed to cross. But Loki asks who said it's not allowed. No one has ever decided that they can't help humans first. She then begins to reveal her true form, saying that she is the one who decides who lives or who dies by opposing her. And if anyone opposes this, then they will not show mercy, even if they are a god. But however, she will not be a judge in Tamamon's trial. The one who will solve this is Tsukasa, and she just tells him to show all the determination he has for her, and he says he will. Tamamon, still shaking, says that's right then. Everything that happens from now on will be her fault. And he starts screaming, saying he's going to cut him into small pieces. And he launches a vortex of mud with his fan towards Tsukasa, but Tsukasa stops that attack with just his hand and then goes at her. Extremely fast, she manages to defend using her fan with tremendous difficulty, while Tsukasa has his blade imbued with flames. He kicks her again, throwing her away, and before she can balance herself again, he comes with several balls of flames. The girl is in a cold sweat, but still shouts at him not to look directly at her. Just because he obtained the power of a god, these flames are completely insignificant to her, and he manages to bat them all away. But she didn't expect him to use that attack to get closer to her even faster, and there he is behind her. He draws his sword with tremendous speed and makes a sharp attack on her, throwing her backwards. Then raise your sword and activate Vanguard, causing an explosion wave at the location. After the dust settles, there she is, emanating her aura of superiority, tremendously hurt, as, how dare a human put himself in front of a god? But before she could finish speaking, our protagonist's little foot is already there, nudging her away. That blow was so strong that she twirled several times in the air, but landed on her feet like a true fox. She starts shouting at him, saying that again he dared to insolently kick her. She starts to throw several curses at him, with all her power now emanating several tails of power towards him. But he imbues his sword with several thunders and starts kicking all those tails there and cutting several with the thunder's blade. She starts to heal herself, calling him an insistent pest, and soon after Tsukasa is nearby trying to cut her with his flaming blades. Now, she didn't say she was going to kill him, but that was a mirage. He then begins to use the skills he learned, Mirror Image, Paradise, and Banquet of Champions, and she will never be able to escape the final attack, Tyrannog. A huge explosion of blue wave falls on that woman, setting the whole place on fire with those blue flames. As Tsukasa watches, Loki says this isn't over, and he knows it isn't over. Loki tells him not to let his guard down. After all, a cornered mouse will always bite the cat. After the mist disperses, she appears there, casting several curses at Tsukasa. As? How dare he call her a cornered rat? And she is now tremendously furious. She never thought she could seriously fight a pathetic human and begins to activate her full aura. That whole place there starts to shake a lot, and the room starts to spin. Loki says that she has finally shown her true origins, and she activated the 9-tailed heavenly beast skill, a huge, strong, and furry fox. While saying in his fox form, how dare a mere human mock a god? She will lead him to death slowly from now on. He asks Loki if this is Tamamon's true form, and she says yes, and it is for Tsukasa to show everything he has learned so far, and give a true ending to this fight. And before he could devise a strategy, she already launches her 9 tails. launching several consecutive attacks at Tsukasa, but he manages to block some, repel others, and dodge others with tremendous difficulty. He imbues his sword with flames and thunder and throws a blow at it that immediately counters with tremendous ease. Tsukasa is now in trouble, but he won't give up. One of those sticks hits him squarely in the ribs, throwing him away with tremendous force. After the dust settles, he's already there on his knees, asking if this is a true power of a god. Apparently, she won't let him win easily. As our fox goddess begins to howl, one of the tails goes towards Tsukasa and he dodges. In the air, he shouts, throwing more power towards her while she says that he is faced with facts that money and not even training can buy. His attack is immediately dispelled with just one of his tails, but he doesn't give up there. He counters her tail using the flaming blade and soon falls to the ground, extremely tired and panting, but he won't give up there. While she imposingly exudes her aura, she speaks quite arrogantly that he doesn't seem quite human. His tricks aren't working anymore. She will teach him what true divine power is, activating his full power. He smiles, still sweating, says she has pretty bad eyesight. He then launches several fireballs towards her that the fight is just beginning, and she counters them all using her tail. As she hits those fireballs, one of the tails hits Tsukasa, throwing her away with tremendous force and even causing an explosion at the place of the fall. But he gets up all shaking, and he just says that she is a small obstacle that he has to face towards victory. But she is very strong, but even if she is strong, it won't be enough to kill him. Lofen then appears without being called, saying that he will protect his master until the end, but she soon says what that insignificant little dog will be able to do to her. He then begins to growl and begins to activate his power in his true form, becoming tremendously large. That necklace on his collar gave him more power. Now, he is ready to face that goddess, while she says she is going to eat him. Screaming and emanating all her power, Lofen advances towards her as she prepares herself, and he throws several blows at her and she counters them all. The fight is intense between the two, extremely fast, while Tsukasa is looking from afar in disbelief that Lofen had such power. She, with her 9 tails, attacking with tremendous force, and Lofen bites, tears, and attacks with Vanguard. It starts to roar tremendously loud. Winds and lightning come out everywhere. She screams with a terrifying expression, telling that damn dog not to touch her, and launches all of her tails at once towards Lofen. Lofen shows no weakness. He can dodge all attacks in advance. Tsukasa didn't expect that wolf to transform into Fenrir, but Loki says that that is his true form. But his power is still not enough compared to his original form. That collar he got has the power to make Fenrir progress through time, allowing him to become a stronger version of himself even from the future, while Lofen is able to bite her. Tsukasa now understands the power of that necklace. Even though Lofen is winning the battle, that transformation won't last long. Lofen keeps biting and shaking her tail, and she keeps screaming. Loki warns Tsukasa that this is the perfect opportunity for him to deliver a final blow. He shouldn't let that opportunity pass by. He then activates all of his power into the sword, while Lofen activates the celestial strength of the wolf and Vanguard together. That power traps her, but she roars and manages to free herself while Lofen goes at it. She keeps shouting that they are thinking they are going to win without a chance. She counters Lofen, who is thrown away, and then tells him to be enveloped in mystical flames and burn eternally, gathering a tremendously terrifying power above his body. Fenrir feels the shock, but activates Vanguard. A clash between the two powers is tremendously strong and is felt throughout that room. Then several explosions happen, and Tsukasa is faced with the tremendous power. And after the smoke clears, we see poor Lofen all in a mess on the floor, and she is still intact. Tsukasa, now discredited, realizes that Lofen's body cannot keep up with her power. He should have reacted sooner. She walks calmly towards Lofen. A creature with such power dared to challenge a goddess. That wolf and his pathetic master really go beyond stupidity. Tsukasa is now enraged and attacks her, saying he will never forgive her, while Loki tells him to wait. He then sets off with full force. She prepares to defend those flames, while saying that every attack from that one is tremendously annoying. He asks if Lofen is okay, and he just growls and starts to get up, but he immediately tells him not to stand, just rest. But then he notices the flames burning in Lofen's eyes. And now it's time for the final fight. The two head towards her, using Vanguard at the same time. The shock of that power is so great that it throws her backwards. She starts to say that they can't fool her with those movements, and starts to activate her art skill, while the two don't wait a bit and go at it. Lofen with Vanguard and Tsukasa with several fireballs causes a huge explosion where the goddess was. Tsukasa knows that at this rate they are going to lose. After all, it is still intact. The only way out they have is to restore Vanguard to his maximum power and try point-blank rain. Her tails prevent him from being able to make a direct attack. The two then go up again, while the goddess uses her tails and manages to wound Fenrir several times. But he continues to advance despite being injured and bites her neck. Lofen is truly loyal, and this is the opportunity he has been waiting for. This little animal is the best companion he could have. He goes up using the words of Ragnarok prophecy opening the gates of heaven. She's going to send him straight to hell. Before she knows it, he's behind her with tremendous speed and his hand on his sword. And she just says that that guy is a tremendous coward using a surprise attack and manages to repel Tsukasa's attack. He already said he was going to kill her no matter what. As she counters that power, she tells him to shut up. A tremendously arrogant human, he will not defeat her simply because he has achieved the power of a god, because he is still a weak mortal. He will succumb to the true power of the shadows. He begins to imbue all his power also, telling her not to deceive herself, and several chains now begin to chain her. He managed to copy his own mystical flames. She just calls it a cheap trick and emanates all her power and manages to break all those chains. Tsukasa, on the other hand, begins to imbue his sword with more fire, as if experiencing his own Tamamon curse. He walks slowly towards her, who is already lying on the ground, telling her to remove the curse that is on her sister, and also on his friend. But she says she will remove it. He just has to put down the sword. He just tells her not to play too much. His objective is solely to save his sister and his entire family. Tsukasa starts screaming that even for that, he has to erase her from the face of the earth. She smiles, saying in that case, what would he do if all his relatives died? You're crazy. Things are falling apart, my brother. That's it. The chapters end here. What did you think of the video? Comment below. Tsukasa is getting very strong, and Loki is mischievous. I thought she would never help in a battle, but she did. If this video reaches the likes target, we will bring more chapters as soon as there are sequels available. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.